Welcome friends to another r/NuclearRevenge video. Today we've got a crazy story of revenge involving a sibling sleeping with their sibling's fiancé. But first, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. That said, our story of the day is my brother slept with my fiancé, so I ruined his life. No doubt you felt anger before. You stubbed your toe, you lost a bet with a friend, someone cut you off in traffic when you were already having a bad day. Whatever the case, we've all been there before. All experienced that kind of passing frustration. But have you ever felt what I like to call deep anger? You know, the kind of anger that doesn't just leave. The kind that flares up like a normal case of red hots, rising and rising and rising, and then just stays there. The kind of anger that'll sit with you for days and weeks, if not months and years, boiling and simmering with untouchable heat until it can finally be released somehow. The kind of anger that can ruin your life, or someone else's. I'm sure some psychiatrist type out there could give me some proper medical term for whatever it is I'm describing, but that's the name I prefer, deep anger. Anyways, if you haven't had the tragic luck of experiencing deep anger before, I pray to God you never do. I wasn't kidding when I said it has the potential to ruin lives, and I'm unfortunately not kidding when I say I know this from my own experience. It all started with my older brother. My brother and I have never had the best of relationships, even before all the stuff I'm about to tell you went down. He was always kind of manipulative and two-faced towards me, in a way I don't know how to describe other than to say he would do something to mistreat me or take advantage of me and then try to convince me that it had been an honest mistake, that it would never happen again. When we were kids, his favorite thing to do would be to convince me to go out in the backyard with him to play a game of two-man baseball. When I would inevitably agree, having somehow forgotten what had happened the last time we played backyard baseball, we would go out there and he'd say something like, "Alright OP, you can start out as the batter and I'll be the pitcher," like he was doing me some kind of favor. Then we would both get in our places. He would take the baseball, wind up in some super exaggerated motion, and then bam, the ball would fly right into me, every single time. The first couple, I'd get some variation of, "Sorry OP, I'm still warming up." After that, when I started to get mad, it would be, "Come on, it's harder than it looks." Then, when he could tell that I was finally about to quit and run back inside, he would convince me to try at least one more pitch. Sometimes I would have the sense to refuse, but sometimes, for whatever reason, I would decide to give him another chance. When I do that, my brother would really make me pay for my stupidity. I'd get back in place, ready myself for the pitch, and then bam, right in the head every time. I'm sure you're shaking your head right now at how dumb I was for falling for such an obvious trick. While I can't really disagree with that sentiment too much, keep in mind that at this time, I was only 7 or 8 years old. I genuinely looked up to my brother, who was 4 years older than me, and I was willing to forgive him every time. He was never worth it though. That's just a small example, kind of a stupid one, but it's just one of thousands that I experienced day in and day out while I was growing up. And eventually, my brother's betrayal and manipulation reached levels that no sane person had any business excusing. Levels that I had no intention of excusing. The first step to getting to this level of betrayal and anger, besides, you know, all the stuff he did on a daily basis growing up, came when I was a senior in high school. When I was a senior, I'd gotten a girlfriend who I really liked. In hindsight, it was just a typical high school thing, nothing that serious, but at the time, this girl was basically my life. Bit of an exaggeration, but still, I spent almost every second of free time I had with her and talked about her in front of my family constantly. All that to say, my brother definitely knew what she meant to me and how much I cared about that relationship. Maybe you already see where this is going, but if you don't, let me explain. One day, I'm coming home from school earlier than normal. It's a Thursday, and normally on Thursdays, I have basketball practice for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours after school. But on this particular day, my practice had been canceled, so I'm getting back to my house earlier than I normally would. I'm excited as I make my way home. My girlfriend's supposed to be waiting there for me, which isn't an unusual thing at all. Like I said, we were really close and had been dating for probably like 7 months at this point. So my family is very comfortable with her, and she more or less can let herself in and out of the house as she pleases. When I get home, I see my girlfriend's car in the driveway like I was expecting. From the rest of the cars there, it looks like both my parents are gone, and it's just my brother there along with my girlfriend. Anyway, I walk into the house and start to make my way upstairs to where my room is. I hadn't seen my girlfriend downstairs at all, so I call out her name. No response. Kind of weird, but she probably just didn't hear me. I walk into my bedroom, expecting to see her there, but she's not. Now I'm getting genuinely confused. I'm nearly positive I hadn't seen her anywhere downstairs, and it's not like this is a huge house with places I wouldn't have seen her. I call out her name again, still no answer. Confused, I walk out of my room and start to make my way down the hall to where my brother's room is. Maybe he knows where she is. I open the door to his room and start to ask, "Hey, have you seen?" when I'm stopped in my tracks. Bam! Just like the baseballs he would hurl at my head as a kid, I'm greeted by a sight I can only describe as utter betrayal. There, on my brother's bed, are my brother and my now immediately ex-girlfriend, fully going at it. No clothes, no shame, no nothing. As you might imagine, I immediately fly into rage mode. What the freak is going on? What are you doing? I don't even know if I'm talking to my brother or my girlfriend, but I'm talking to someone. Words can't even describe how angry I'm feeling. A few minutes later, after they've both dressed themselves, I obviously break up with my girlfriend on the spot right then and there. She tries to give me some half-hearted excuse, but I cut her off immediately and just send her away. I'm not gonna waste my time with any of that. There's no excuse in the world that can convince me to stay with her after what I just saw. So that just left my brother. While I'd been talking with my girlfriend, he had conveniently slipped away and gone back upstairs. But I'm not gonna let him get off that easily. I walk back upstairs and head to his room. When I get there, he's just sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall, obviously trying to look as remorseful as possible. I managed to stand there for a second before going right back into anger mode. "Well," I basically shouted at him, "do you even have anything to say for yourself? I mean, what were you thinking? How are you gonna betray my trust like that? Wait," my brother interrupts me. "Please, just calm down for a second and let me explain." Let you explain? Let you explain? What is there even to explain? Just hold on a second, he says. Please just calm down and I can explain everything. I'm still fuming, but I take a step back and make a motion with my hands like, go ahead. So he does. My brother proceeds to tell me his account of what happened. A long-winded, rambling story about how he'd been minding his own business in his room when my girlfriend had randomly barged in and started making really aggressive advances towards him. He had obviously tried to reject her advances over and over again, but she was so persistent that he eventually had basically no choice but to get in. And that's how we got here. He finishes telling his story, looking up at me like I'm just supposed to drop everything now, live and let live. The story's obviously BS, but I'm honestly just more defeated than angry at this point. The fury is giving way to sadness. Okay, I sigh and just turn around for the door. Wait, my brother jumps up off his bed. Wait, listen, you gotta believe me. I wouldn't do anything to hurt you, I promise. Really? I just stare at him. Honestly, Listen, I made an awful mistake, but you gotta forgive me. I'm so sorry. He looks right into my eyes. I will never do anything like this to hurt you again. I swear. Ready to just be done with all of this over-the-top pleading, I nod. Okay, thanks. I hope you mean that. I do, he says as I walk away. After that day, he more or less stuck to his promise to me, but that didn't exactly entail too much on his part. I was a senior in high school, so only a few months after that day, I was off to college and away from my brother, leaving him with remarkably few opportunities to somehow betray me again. For the most part, I loved being at college and away from my brother. Not having to constantly worry 24/7 about what he might be doing or how he was going to make my life miserable on a random Thursday was one of the most refreshing experiences of my life. When I would go home on breaks and holidays to visit, we would be cordial to each other. No nasty words, no shooting daggers, but it was always still a little bit tense. I never completely lost the feeling in the back of my head that I couldn't trust my brother, that he was still trying to play me or take advantage of me somehow, but for the most part, I just tried to suppress that thought. I was away from home, so there was nothing he could do, and he was still family. Yeah, he may have been a jerk to me in the past, but he was still family. Fast forward about 4 years into the future, I've just graduated from college a few months ago, and I've been dating this girl I met there for quite some time. Looking back, there were more than a few red flags I should have noticed and done something about, but I'm stupid and naive, and at the time, I thought this girl is the one. As in, the one. So much so that I actually pulled the trigger and proposed to her after we both graduated from school. She says yes, if only she hadn't. We're so excited, I've never been happier, blah blah blah, the whole deal. So we set a date to get married, about 3 months into the future. Things are going amazing, I'm enjoying life, and it's just smooth sailing all around. What could go wrong at this point? Well, fast forward about another 2 months into the future. It's now just about a month before I'm due to get married, and my family decides to take a trip over the Christmas holiday. My parents are paying for the whole thing, so I'm all aboard. We end up going to this super nice resort right on the beach where we have great weather and a great view of water. It's me, my fiance, my parents, and my brother, and all in all, we're having a great time. For the first few days, that is. Then I start noticing some weird stuff happening between my fiance and my brother. Hard to describe stuff, but noticeable nonetheless. Weird looks between them. Sometimes I would walk into a room where they were, and they would sort of jump to attention. Just strange energy between the two of them that starts to get the wheels turning in my head. At first I thought I was just being paranoid. I mean, this is my freaking fiancé, for crying out loud. We love each other, right? She would never do something to hurt me. But as the days ticked away on our vacation, and the looks and secretiveness and the weird energy not only continued, but seemed to be increasing, my suspicion got to the point where I wasn't even sure I would call it paranoia anymore. But still, it's not like I had any definite proof of anything. For all I knew, I was just being paranoid, and this whole thing had been completely made up in my head. Then I'd start to think about that day, 4 years in the past, when I'd come home, only to find my brother and my then girlfriend. My thoughts continue to bounce back and forth like this, one extreme to another, day after day, until about a week into our vacation. I had had enough. I had to get to the bottom of all this somehow. I decided to lay a trap of sorts. One day, when my parents were planning on going into the local town to do some shopping, I told my fiancée that I was planning on going with them. She asked if I wanted her to go with me. I knew she legitimately wouldn't want to go. For whatever reason, she disliked spending time with my parents. One of those red flags I was talking about earlier. So this was the perfect opportunity to put my little plan into motion. No, I told her, it's fine, I'll just go with them myself. You stay here and rest up. So the three of us left. Me, my mom, and my dad. Leaving just my fiancé and my brother back at the condo. After about 20 minutes, I lied and told my parents my stomach wasn't feeling well, so I was just going to walk back by myself while they continued to shop. On the walk back to our condo, my heart was pounding, and I actually started to feel a little bit sick to my stomach. If my suspicions were true, and, well, I didn't even want to think about that. I was just being paranoid, and I was going to prove that to myself here and now, and be able to put this awful paranoia to rest. When I got back, I opened the door slowly and quietly creeped into the entranceway. I passed by the living room and didn't see anyone, so I continued past the room towards the hallways where everyone's bedrooms were located. Still walking as silently as I could, I turned the corner into the hallway, and bam! Final fastball right to the cranium. There were only 2 people in this condo besides me, and the sounds coming from my brother's room were unmistakable. I wasn't being paranoid. I was immediately furious, of course. and I thought about barging into the room to confront them both right there, but for whatever reason, I decided to leave the condo. Somehow I didn't think it would be enough to just confront them. I had entered the purest state of deep anger I'd ever experienced in my life, and I needed actual payback. Not just a little bit of yelling, raised voices, a couple of how could yous. No, I wanted lives ruined, reputations slashed, futures shattered. I wanted actual revenge. I wanted to inflict pain. Remember what I said about deep anger? About how it can stay with you for days or even weeks? Well, I learned that firsthand. For the next 2 weeks after that day, I stayed as livid as I'd been from the very first moment. But the thing about deep anger is that it's fundamentally tactical. The fury runs so deep that you'll be able to pull off anything, do anything, pretend to be anything in pursuit of your new mission of pain infliction. So for the next 2 weeks, although I was absolutely red-hot furious to the bone, constantly and 24/7, I never let it show. I had a plan. The first thing I did was break it off with my fiancée. I didn't tell her why, didn't tell her what I discovered during the vacation, just packed up the things she had in my apartment, gave them to her, and kicked her to the curb, left to wonder what had happened. I obviously thought about including her in my plan for revenge, but honestly, the rage I had felt towards my brother completely overshadowed the anger I felt towards her. She had betrayed me, no doubt, but my brother had sold me out and spit on me, and I was out for blood. To understand the next part of my plan, there's one thing you need to know about my brother that I haven't told you yet, and that's that he's a former drug addict. During my sophomore year in college, he had become seriously addicted to a variety of drugs. I wasn't there for most of it, but from what I understand, it eventually got bad enough that my parents ended up giving him an ultimatum: get clean or get kicked out of the family. So my brother did get clean, got help, went to rehab, did the whole shebang. But as my parents and my brother both told me afterwards, the ultimatum remained. If my brother ever started using again, he would essentially be excommunicated from the family. No chance to explain himself, no wave goodbye, no contact, and he would even have no job because he was employed at the company our dad ran. So as the deep anger worked its way through my system and coursed through my veins, I zeroed in on that beautiful prospect, ruining my brother's life. I didn't think I'd be able to get him using again, and believe me, I would have tried if I thought there was a feasible way, but I did think there was a way that I could make it look like he had started using again. The first thing I did was buy a small amount of a certain drug I knew my brother had had a bit of a lust for in the not too distant past. I'm not gonna say which one because I'm not sure if that's allowed, but let's just say that it took some dedication for me to find. I didn't care though. I would have gone full Walter White and cooked my own product if I had to. My brother was going down one way or another. The next thing I did was wait for a time when our whole family would be staying together under the same roof. I didn't get my chance until Easter holiday, when my brother and I would be staying at my parents' house over the weekend. Again, I didn't care. I would have waited a whole year if I had to. My brother was going down. All that was left then was to put my plan into action. I knew while we were there, my mom would insist on doing my brother and I's laundry. No matter how much I insisted back that I was more than capable of doing my own, and that she usually did laundry on Saturday afternoons. So when noon rolled around on that Saturday, I took the little special baggie I'd purchased for my brother, quickly snuck it into his room while he was preoccupied downstairs, and tucked the bag into the back pocket of some jeans on the top of his laundry basket. After setting the scene, I dashed back out of the room and prepared to wait. When I saw my mom going upstairs with a laundry basket 30 minutes later, I knew the time had almost come. Sure enough, not a full 10 minutes had passed before I heard my mom let out what I can only describe as a truly frightening yell. After the yell, she practically ran down the stairs and into the living room where my brother, my dad, and I were sitting. I noticed immediately she had the present I'd left for my brother in her hands. "What the freak is this?" she screamed at my brother. "You cannot be serious right now." I could see the fear in my brother's face as he sat up in his chair. "What the heck? What is that?" "That's not mine, Mom." My dad stood up then, walked over to where my mom was standing, and took the bag from her. He examined it for a good second, then looked up at my brother seriously. "You're done, son. You're done." What? My brother was losing it. "I'm not even lying right now. That's seriously not mine. I'm telling the truth." My mom laughed sarcastically. "Oh, you're telling the truth? Isn't that just convenient? Do you know how many times we heard that same story 2 years ago? We can't believe a word you're saying right now." My brother was basically on his knees now, begging my parents to listen to him. I know, believe me, I know. But you've got to listen to me now. That's actually not mine, I swear. I've been clean for the past 2 years. You know this." My mom sighed. "I thought I did know that. I thought I did. But apparently it was all just another one of your great big lies." No, it's not. I don't know where that came from at all." My dad jumped in now. "So what, son? You want us to believe that this baggie just magically teleported into your room? That someone snuck in there and planted it on you? I mean, come on now, give us a break. I know you can pull anything over us, but we're not that dumb." He says, "But I didn't." Nope, my dad interrupted. "This has already gone on long enough. You knew what the deal was. Go upstairs, pack whatever you can into a duffel bag, and get out of here. You're done." He said, "No, but I'm not gonna tell you again. Go upstairs, pack your stuff, and get out. And don't even think about trying to show up to the office on Monday. You're done there too." He says, "But Dad, I need that job. What am I gonna do in the meantime? Where will I even stay?" My dad just shrugged. "That's for you to figure out." Still in shock, my brother stood up from his chair and slowly made his way upstairs, like he was being sent to the electric chair or something. I sat where I was, where I'd been the entire time my family was blowing up around me, slightly shocked myself that the plan had worked so terribly effective. I noticed that my shoulders had unclenched, and that my jaw wasn't as tight as it had been. The deep anger was gone, along with my brother. After about 30 minutes, he came walking back down the stairs with a single duffel bag in hand. He started to walk over to my mom, like he wanted to give her a hug goodbye or something, but she lifted up her hand and pointed towards the door. Dejected, he slowly walked across the rest of the room, made it to the door, opened it, and walked out. That was the last time I ever saw my brother in person. The guilt started to hit me almost as soon as he made his way out of the door. I quickly realized, sitting there in my chair, as my parents silently walked up to their room together, that it wasn't just my brother that I'd punished. I had punished my entire family. Had, if I was really being honest, torn my entire family apart just then, in the blink of an eye. Yeah, my brother had done some messed up things to me, and he maybe deserved to get some of the payback for all of the stuff he'd put me through, but my parents? I got up too then and made my way to my room. I wasn't angry anymore, just sad. The guilt was pretty bad then, but it was nothing compared to what I felt a month later. I was sitting in my apartment watching TV when I got a call from my mom. I picked up the phone and could tell immediately something was wrong from her voice. When I asked her what was wrong, she told me that she'd gotten a call from my brother earlier that day and that he was still using. She then told me that my brother was still claiming that the baggie they'd found in his room wasn't his, but that, just despite them, he had actually started using again. "He's obviously delusional," my mom cried to me. "I can't believe he would ruin his life like this." After that, I did my best to comfort her, but what could I say? When I hung up the phone, it all hit me. In the span of a single day, I had started a chain reaction that had led to my brother being kicked out of the family, fired from the only job he ever had, and inspired to start using drugs again. I still don't believe that there's any way he deserved all that. He may have harassed me since I was a kid, had been a key part in ruining 2 of the most important relationships in my life, but dang. All I know for a fact is that my parents didn't deserve any of this. If I could go back, the one thing I wish I could change for certain is my parents being punished by all of this. They always thought it was my brother and his addiction that was going to tear the family apart. Little did they know, it was going to be me and my anger issues. So in the moment, at the heat of everything, do you blame OP for what they did? after all of the childhood bullying and abuse from their brother, after having two of the most important relationships ruined for them like that, in that moment, do you blame OP for planning that stuff on their brother and getting them kicked out? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another revenge story that was even more insane than the one in this video, click on that left video. Or if you missed my latest video, click on the right. But with that said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.